gospel, light of the temple. Short swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Blackberry on the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One, and this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this? Episode number 51. If you caught episode number 50, it was our 2-year anniversary. You know, we did 50 episodes, Cam. A lot of work, a lot of struggle, a lot of fun, though. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of great guests on this show. We did 50 episodes in studio, but we had about 59 total with the Zoom ones over the internet. So that definitely was a good thing. So if you're out there, you like the podcast, please subscribe, follow, share. We need all the support we can get, so we'd appreciate it very much. But we're going to get into this podcast today. Definitely was a guy on my list for a while, I think. I had a couple people in mind, and I was kind of like, I met him a few times. I bought some, what is called merchandise off him. I don't want to tell anybody what I buy. But bought a few things off him. Great store he owns. He's a father. He's a husband. He's a car guy. Just found out he's a software guy, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But definitely a Second Amendment guy, and that's the reason why I kind of invited him. There's a lot of people out there asking a lot of questions about things, and maybe could help clear some of that up and change your perspective a little bit. I think people get an idea of who Second Amendment people are, and we're going to kind of clear that up today. But I want to welcome to the show Mr. Brett Swaim.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How's it going, man?
Good. Hot.
It was hot today, man. You pulled up in the Hummer.
I pulled up in the Hummer, but you'll notice that it's got the soft top on it, right?
Yeah.
And I had to pull the whole back flap up and roll it up because it was just so hot. Like, those things do not have air conditioners.
I don't imagine so. It's an older model too, right?
Yeah, it's a really cool car, actually. It was in the United States Marine Corps, so nice. It's a USMC trade-in, and a Marine Corps sergeant ended up buying it at auction like 20 years ago,
so
right?
Cool.
In the 90s. And all three of his sons were in the Marines too. So, you know, it's a whole family of Marines, and they live up in the Bay Area. I was on Craigslist one day.
What the heck?
I'm on Craigslist all the time. I'm a total Craigslist whore.
You can find some good stuff.
You can find some good stuff on Craigslist. I got tons of stories.
I like Craigslist better than OfferUp.
I like Craigslist better than OfferUp as well. I
do.
Especially because there's a lot more third-party support, so you can actually set up watches on Craigslist, whereas OfferUp's just like, here's what you might like. And I'm like, this is exactly what I want. Knock that off.
It never goes good on OfferUp either.
Right. So I end up talking to this guy. I buy the Humvee, and he basically gives me 2 Humvees. It's one Humvee as a vehicle, and then a whole other Humvee in parts, like transaxles, axles, transfer cases, wheels, extra bulletproof glass. Like,
nice.
The guy was a hoarder for Humvee parts. It was great. So I got it all. We drove up there with my truck. I've got an F-250 at the time, and a trailer that was too small for the Humvee by far.
I bet.
Yep. And we literally threw all the parts in the bed of the truck, threw all the parts inside the Humvee, under the Humvee, like strapped it all down, and towed it back home from San Jose.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's great. The cars needed almost no work.
Really?
Like a couple basic things, but for the most part, it's just run.
Do you service that truck yourself?
I do all vehicle maintenance myself on all my cars.
Nice.
The only thing that I'll put out there is the first time I do something brand new, I'll have a mechanic do it with me to make sure I do it right.
Right.
And then I do it all. As I get busier, that's starting to fall off a little bit. But I literally just changed all the brake fluid on all my cars the other day, and oil and a bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Speaking of being busy, I can imagine you're pretty busy right now. You have a local gun store.
I do have a local gun store, but we have really good employees. And you say I'm the owner. It's not technically true. My wife technically owns it. It's a women-owned small business. We're registered that way in California.
Nice.
My wife is actually there more than I am.
Okay.
She's there on site every day. She's a CPA, so she does all the paperwork, all the payments, all the payroll, all the stuff that actually makes a business run. Right. She's the engine, and all I do is Instagram, price things, find out what's cool, try to order it, and like
all the fun
customers.
stuff.
It's kind of the fun stuff.
Yeah.
She kind of does all the junk stuff. She does get the short end of the stick on that one.
But those accountants like that kind of stuff, right? That's fun to them.
She does.
Yeah, keeping it all in
She would like a little bit more recognition, but she's not going to get it. Let's be honest.
Shout out your wife. Shout out your wife.
Chris, you're great. You're doing a great job. I'll reward you later.
I think it's a trip.
She doesn't want my rewards.
I think it's a trip that I mentioned in the intro that you're a software guy. Your wife's a CPA.
Yep.
And you're both in the gun business.
Yeah, it wasn't really supposed to be this way. What is, right? Were we supposed to be here? I don't know. Maybe not.
Who knows?
My backstory is a little interesting, just in that I never went to school. I was homeschooled from second grade up. Really? So I never went to public school outside of kindergarten and first grade. And then I went to Citrus College, and then I went to Cal State Fullerton, got a degree in computer science. I did ROTC.
So you're a SoCal guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did ROTC for 4 years, did the Army thing for a little bit, never actually went in, but did it up until enlistment, and I was like, I'm good. Because I started a software company. I was the 16th person to work at the software company. And when we started, we were so small that we were in the founder's bedroom still. Like they always say, Hewlett Packard started in a garage.
Right.
They weren't even in the garage yet. I was still in the bedroom. Like it was.
I've seen that meme.
Yeah.
It's like Apple. They show the garage. All these companies, a little shack, whatever.
Right. Exactly. So did that for a long time. And I did other things too, but I always had that as my main. I was always doing sides though. I started an IT company. I paid my way through college with that.
Nice.
And then I did that for 16 years, but 14 years into the software gig, I started a gun business. I kind of took it over from a good friend of mine, and he ran 2A Zone before, so he was out of the house.
Okay.
And it got so busy for him in his day job that he was just dying, right? And his wife was running it, but his wife was a stay-at-home mom, always wanted to be. That's what he wanted. That's what she wanted. But she wasn't. She was a stay-at-home worker for the gun business all the time because he had to go to his real job. So one day he just goes, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm shutting it down. 30 days, we're done. And at that time, at that point in our lives, we'd had 2 kids, and my wife, was trying to decide whether or not to go back to work after the second kid or not. And we just went back and forth, and she was like, I want to work. I can't stay home with kids. It's just not me. And I'm like, you're correct. I keep pulling you off the ceiling, and your head's backwards, like
2 boys. It's kind of rough.
Yeah. So she was like, I want to go back to work. And I said, fine, but you can't go back to where you were because you were in Azusa, and we live in a rancho. It's an hour drive out, an hour drive back in traffic with 2 kids who you're dropping off at your mom's house every day. It was just horrible. It was a horrible existence. It was a great job. She liked it, but the dynamics just didn't work, the logistics.
Right.
So she goes, well, what do you want to do? And I go, well, I'm still working my job, so you don't really have to work. And she goes, no, I have to work. And I'm like, all right. I go, whatever we do, we're not going to compete with Google or Amazon. And she goes, well, what's left? And I go, porn, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, explosives. And she goes, well, I'm not doing porn.
Good.
And I'm like, I'm a software engineer. You don't have to be in it. We can do it. Like, we could build a whole site if we wanted to. We could whatever. And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, great. And then I'm like, I'm not doing explosives. It's just too much paperwork. And she's like, okay, well, what's alcohol, tobacco look like? I'm like, well, do you want to buy a like a distribution center and start driving around to liquor stores and stuff like that every day and dropping off cigarettes and alcohol? And she's like, no. And I'm like, then we're selling firearms. She goes, okay, let's sell some firearms.
Wow. Were you into firearms at any time?
We both owned guns.
Okay.
We both had our CCWs.
Okay.
Right at that time. So yeah, we shot.
Yeah.
We shot. I had a number of variety of guns, right? We used to go to Front Sight in Nevada, which is a firearms trading academy there, which I used to go to a ton. I go to less when things are going on. It's different, but still great for training if you can get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were into guns. I wouldn't say we were fanatics. I didn't own a lot of guns. She owned 2. I might have owned 5. That's shotguns, rifles, and handguns. Not very many.
That's more than the average person, though.
I guess.
I think the average is 2 to 3.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. The basic person, not the.
Some people blow the average out.
Yeah, I have a friend that's like a lot. I mean, I thought he was kidding. He's like 50 something, and I was kind of like,
no, that exists.
Yeah,
for sure, and that's not a problem.
No, it's not a problem. I don't think it's a problem. If
you can only hold 2.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I think it's like collecting anything else, right? I mean, what you love, you can afford it, you can buy it, you get your hands on it. I mean, it's kind of like a hobby sometimes. You just get these things like collecting a watch or something like that. You just get...
And that's just what I was going to say, right? In the gun business, it's interesting. Gun guys are generally into guns, girls, cars, and watches, right? That's basically the list. And you talk to guys, and he's like, yeah, I got 23 cars, 24, 25 cars. He's got 100 watches, right? And my initial reaction is, that's a lot of watches, but cool. Yeah. I bet it looks good on your wall. That's nice.
I guess you could call that guy big time.
Yeah, big time. I like that. That's true.
I would think, though, I mean, just for the amount of paperwork that a consumer, a buyer like myself, has to fill out. I mean, I'm used to it now. It's a little annoying, you know. Yeah. But it is what it is. If you're going to buy a gun, that's the way it goes.
Right.
Especially here in California. But I would think a dealer, a gun store owner, would just be massive amount of paperwork and just constant headaches. I wouldn't even call them checks and balances because I'm okay with checks and balances, but just headaches of something new changing. Oh, you got to do this now. You got to do this now. Or you got to do this, trying to be on top of every little single thing.
Especially in California, right? If we were to slice off the California part, it's not too terrible. Too terrible, right? Guys that sell guns in Nevada, they have the 14473, which is a bound set of papers, like 3 or 4 papers, and it's in like a little folder, so you can't separate them. And that's all they really have. Yeah. That's it. And federal law states that all 4473s must be stored for 25 years. And now they just changed it to the life of the business. So if you're in business longer than 25 years, you are storing the records indefinitely. California is 7 years, I believe, 5 or 7 years. But again, that would be my wife. My wife actually knows the timelines. Yeah. The federal one, I'm sure of. The California one, I'm not.
It's crazy. It is a big difference. I mean, I had a friend of mine calls me. He lives in Kansas City. He goes, hey, man, I called him, actually. He goes, hey, man, I'll call you back right now. I'm going to go in this gun store and I'm going to buy this gun.
You're like, see you in 3 hours.
No, he was in Kansas City. So, I'm thinking that, right? And he literally called me like 15 minutes later. And he goes, oh, I just got it. I'm walking out with it. I go, shut up.
It's not
right. He's like, I'm walking out with it right now. And I'm like, dude, he goes, this is not California, bro. This is Kansas.
You know, so on the consumer side, you're like, oh, man, how cool would that be?
Yeah.
Switch it to my side for a second, right?
Okay.
So I have, let's just say 100, because 100 is an easy number to think about. Got 100 guys come in, they buy 100 guns. Day number 1, right?
Right.
Day number 2, I got another 100 guys that come in and buy 100 guns. Day number 3, I got another 100 guys, right? So now I've got 3 days worth of guys coming in and buy 500 guns. How many guns do I have in the store, assuming I've sold out? 500. I must, because I'm replacing my stock, right?
Yeah.
And I'm storing all the guns for 10 days. So all the guys that came in day 1, I still got their guns. Day 2, I still got their guns. All the way out to day 10. So we actually have, it's basically 50-50. Our vault is 50-50. It's guns we are just storing for the state of California for 10 days, and then guns that we want to sell.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And your store is relatively small. I mean, it would be considered a mom and pop store compared to these franchises around here.
Very. I mean, you compare us to the big guys, multiple locations, and not even like there's places like Second Amendment Sports. They had 3 locations. They got bought by Turner's. They're not around anymore, which is great for them. But they were mom and pop. Even they had 3 stores, but they were still mom and pop. I considered.
Okay.
I don't know if they'd like me saying it, but yeah, I think there's something good to be a mom and pop store. To be honest, like I don't want to be corporate.
I do too. I've bought them my guns at those places, big places, right? The Turners, Ammo Bros now is kind of coming up.
Bass Pro,
right? Bass Pro too, right? And I would say this. It's I'll tell you this. I went to one of these big guys one time. And I bought a gun, and it was a nice gun. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to pick it up, and the guy was after 10 days, I'm all excited. I'm like, yes, I've been waiting to get this gun. It's one that was on my list. I'm excited. Nice handgun. I'm like, great. And so I'm doing the last amount of paperwork and stuff, and the guy's going over the gun with me. I'm like, cool. Another sales associate comes over and he goes, yeah, I really don't like those.
What value did that guy add?
Nothing. And he goes, I probably wouldn't have bought that. And I'm thinking, I'm picking it up.
Yeah.
I'm buying this, and so like,
if you must say anything, it's, oh, that's so cool. If you must say anything.
Right. I'm thinking like, I did my research. Was it a higher end one? I would say no. Is it the lowest end? No. It was right in the middle, just basic.
Springfield, Kimber, something like that.
Yeah,
right in the
it was
middle.
Springfield.
Yep.
Springfield 1911.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it at all.
Right. I mean, it's not a Kimber, but it's not a Rock Island.
It's not a Rock Island.
Right? So I'm thinking in my head, like, this is a great, solid purchase here. And he comes over and says this thing, and I'm looking at him like, dude, I really wanted to punch him in the face, because I'm like, I know this is not the best, but it's not lame, dude. And so I ended up calling back, and I was like, can I speak to the manager? Like, look, this guy, I don't need that. I already purchased it. Yep. You're not going to give me my money back. So if he had something to say, he just kept it to himself. He wasn't even helping me.
Right.
But I go in a smaller store, like your store here, and there's a relationship. And I think that plays big, especially because this is an important purchase. I know when I purchase my firearms, I think about it, okay, what am I buying this for? What is it? Is it for fun? Is it for protection? Is it whatever it may be, right? But I think there has to be some sort. It's a personal thing, man. You go in there and you're asking questions. You're trying to get the best advice. You don't want the guy just trying to sell you junk, but you don't want the guy to put down if you can't afford top line. So
that's one of the things we train our sales associates to do, and most of them already know it because we hire. I think honestly the best. But when somebody comes in, they go, "I want a gun." I say, "Well, what kind? Handgun, rifle, shotgun?" And they tell us, and I go, look, I'm not going to max you out, but give me your price range, and then I'll tell you what I think is best in this price range for what you're trying to accomplish. And if you want to go above it or below it, that's fine. But I just want to set expectations, right? And so that's easy. But when we hire somebody, I think it's different. We're not just hiring people because they can sell or because they can pass a background check to be able to sell guns, because all of our employees have to. When they first come in and they're like, "Hi, I'm this," and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Brett," and I'm like, "Why do you want to work for us?" And they're like, "Oh, I like guns, I like this, I like that." And I'm like, "Okay, what do we sell?" And everybody goes, "Guns, accessories." And I go, "No, we don't sell guns." And they go, "What do you mean you don't sell guns?" I go, "We sell customer service. Guns are a medium."
Yeah.
Right? If somebody walks in and they say, "Hey, I want a Mercedes SL 500, can you help me find it?" Yeah, I'll help you find it. Right? It's no big deal. Yeah. Sales is sales, customer service is customer service. And that's what I want to do. I want to have employees that just do customer service. The guns sell themselves. People come into the shop, they've pretty much done their research. 90% of the people that come in, they're like, "I want this."
They know.
It's not hard to push paper, but it's hard to be nice.
Yeah.
And that's all we want.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think overall in America, we miss the mom and pop shops, right? We miss those stores where you had a relationship, where you can go in and people know your name.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they stop, and you feel comfortable going in there. I think overall in America, I mean, we miss that stuff. I mean, that was huge back in the day.
I'd say in the big cities, you're right. But
good point.
In small cities, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of soul in small cities that we just don't have here because we're all hard. When I ran the software company, or when I was working with the software company, I flew a lot. I hit 1 million flat miles before I turned 30. So I went everywhere. I went to Europe. I went to Australia. I've been to New Zealand. I've been to Hawaii a bunch of times. I've been to Alaska. I've been to North Dakota in the winter, and I've been to Arizona in the middle of the summer, right? And I've been almost every state, and I loved it. I went to North Dakota. Everybody was so freaking nice. It was so great. You go to New York, and nobody even cares about you.
No.
You go to Florida, and everybody's just so nice, but it takes 30 minutes to get your double or whatever, your McDonald's food, because everybody's so chill.
Yeah. And
you're like, guys, be chill, but a little less chill.
Yeah, a little less laid back. I think that's a great segue to, are guns necessary? And I think we're so, like you said, we're so hard in here living in California, and all we see is the crime, the bad things that are done with guns. But there is a lot of places where people depend on their guns for the necessity, right? Food. I mean, part of their livelihood, to keep animals from killing their livestock, whatever it may be. And I think a lot of, and then the culture, right? I think people get it a little bit overexcited here in California when you see a kid living in Idaho and he has a 22 and he's out shooting in the backyard with his dad.
Right.
We're not used to seeing that, and we think it's like, oh look, it's a bad thing. But I think we're so hardened that there is another culture that where kids are raised and they respect guns and they know how to use guns for multiple reasons, for protection, for against animals, or just to go out and shoot and have a good time. And I think here it's just we don't see the whole world, and I think sometimes it can keep us a little jaded or keep people jaded against guns overall.
Yeah. So are guns necessary? It's an interesting question, and I don't love the way it's phrased because you can argue it either way, and you can make a pretty convincing argument for either direction. I would argue that it doesn't matter if they're necessary or not because it's one of the actual few things that are protected in the Constitution. And the interesting thing about rights is that the government just takes things away. Right? They don't grant you things. And food and water are not in the Constitution, right? So you can make the argument of, is it necessary that people let you get food and water? Well, actually, that's not legally protected. You could get cut off from food and water. So guns...
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Guns, and we might run out of water anyway here, so maybe this won't matter anymore. But guns are actually protected, and I think they are necessary, right? Obviously. I think that if there was an alternate dimension where guns were never created and nobody had any, then the answer would be no. But once the ink's in the water, it ain't coming out. Yeah. So at this point, yeah, they're necessary.
Yeah, but I think they're here, and I think other countries that argue, like we
they're
don't,
still there.
We don't.
They're just hidden.
Yeah, Australia, right?
Australia. London, they're still there. There's less. Yes, there's less, but they just resort to different things, right?
Right.
Knives, whatever. Their guns were pretty much illegal in Japan, and Shinzo Abe just got shot by a homemade shotgun, which is horrible.
Yeah.
And I hate it. But it just goes to show that ban it all you want, right? How's that war on drugs going?
Great point. Great point. Drugs are banned, in case everybody didn't know out there.
Yeah.
And now we allow people to shoot up in government-provided buildings, and we give them the necessary tools to shoot up.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of weird. I think, what would you say is the biggest or worst stigma about guns and gun owner legal?
I think right now it's all the school shootings, right? I think that's obviously the biggest stigma around, and I hate it, right? I've got a 6 and an 8-year-old boy. I hate it. Right. They sell these backpacks, and we don't sell the backpacks, but we sell soft Kevlar inserts for bags, and I carry one in mine all the time just because. But the kids, they don't even have the backpacks in their classrooms, or at least most don't. Right. So I don't even see how that would be helpful. But I think that would be the biggest stigma right now is all the school shootings. It's just terrible. I don't understand. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think it's a great argument to pull the guns. But I think the argument it is taken away once you say, well, why don't we provide more security? I think here we go with, they just signed that bill recently, 87,000 new IRS agents, right?
Yep.
Just what we need.
Yep.
I'm sure your wife's going to love that.
No.
I mean, what if we had 87,000 security for schools and created maybe a TSA type thing for schools? I mean, there's only, I told somebody this the other day, I think there's only 150,000 schools in the United States total. And somebody goes, that's not true. I go, look it up. It's like in the 100,000s. And I go, you put some security in each school, it's not going to be it won't end all be all, but it'll be a deterrent.
It'll be something. The guys at Texas probably could have used it.
Yeah, definitely. So I think sometimes it just gets to a point where it's the stigma of that's been the go-to lately, is just the innocent. And then, but I think again, it's kind of like the COVID thing, right? Don't congregate unless you riot. You can be together. Right. I think it kind of defeats the argument there because we can it's this kid in Texas acquires this gun supposedly legally. I don't. That's a whole nother rabbit hole, right?
Thing, yep.
And the thing is how does he get it? I don't know. What's the real story? Who knows? He got it. I don't know how he afforded it. But the whole story is we don't go to the root cause of anything. It's just right away. It's just like, let's just ban everything.
Yeah, look at the tool, not at the root.
And the root cause, who knows? I don't know. Nobody knows, right? It's just,
I don't know. And you're never gonna. We're never gonna know. You and I, we're never gonna know. Even if the FBI knows or whatever, we'll never know. And we only know what the media tells us, and you can choose to believe that or not.
Yeah, I think the Vegas shooter. I mean, that's the mystery of all mysteries.
Oh yeah, dude was totally legit until he wasn't.
I mean, 20 years ago, Tupac got in a fight in a casino. They had it all on tape, everything. This guy carries tons of guns upstairs, and nobody, not even an inkling, supposedly of anything.
Right.
So I think, it gets a little wild, but there's a lot of good things with guns. I think there's a lot of my son, I've taught him about guns since he was little. He has a great respect for it. And I think the thing with guns is, it's always an issue with school shootings, but it's never an issue with the random criminal shootings.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, I've taught him to respect them, and I think he's done a good job of learning to respect guns, having an understanding of what it's all about. And I think education, right? Do you think that's a huge part of it?
Oh, of course. Everything's education. National Night Out, you know what that is?
Yeah.
So we do National Night Out every year, and we try to do it in like the local cities and whatnot. And we grew up in Covina, so we went out to Covina PD's National Night Out a couple weeks ago, and they had a smoke grenade launcher there. The big, huge, the chunk, and the rotating thing, and it breaks in half. And they're letting the kids touch it, right? And so my son goes up and he goes, "Oh yeah, smoke grenade launcher, that's pretty cool." And he picks it up. He's 8. Picks it up, puts it together, and then he holds it, but he keeps his finger outside the mag well, outside the trigger well, right? Completely away from it.
Yeah.
And the cop's like, "Oh, you really know how to do that. Oh, good trigger control. Nice discipline." And my son goes, "Yeah, my daddy taught me. Never put your finger on a trigger."
Right.
And I'm like, "That's right. That's my son."
I mean, it starts young. I mean, I think my dad started taking me when I was like 15, 16. We would just go out and have a good time. He finally got a little extra money. He was able to buy a couple guns that he liked, and we learned. And same thing with my son. 8, 9 years old, we went out, and people were kind of wigged out about that. I think my mom was a little wigged out about it because I think she came from an era in South LA of gun violence and stuff, and that stigma kind of followed. She's like, "Well, I really don't know how I feel about guns anymore."
Right.
And I get it. I had to explain to her, like, "Look, Mom, this is the thing. Like, that you can kind of like you can be against guns for criminals that are hurting people and be for guns for average guys that just like to go out and shoot or want to protect themselves or like it as a hobby or something like that, right? I mean, we can be both."
Yeah, and I will always fall back to you can compare guns to anything, right? People compare guns to, cars. You have to get your car registered, so why shouldn't you have to register your gun, right? That kind of thing. But cars aren't protected, right? Cars are not constitutionally protected. The government can come down today and say, "We think that cars are hurting the environment, and literally nobody's allowed to drive cars anymore. Get on a bus." And they could do that.
Right.
And there's nothing you could do to stop them because there's no real protection there. You could do it for alcohol, right? They tried. They prohibited alcohol for quite a while, and then they unprohibited it because it didn't work out too great. But, you can say, "Hey,
drugs,
I hate alcohol."
Marijuana.
Yeah, drugs, marijuana. And you can say, "Hey, I hate those things. I hate marijuana." Well, then don't smoke marijuana, right? As long as somebody doesn't hurt you with it, then that's not a huge deal, right? They can do them, and you can do you. Alcohol is the same thing, right? I wish that alcoholics didn't drink. But that doesn't mean that, a husband and wife can't enjoy a glass of wine at night on a Friday. That doesn't seem like a big deal or whatever. 21-year-old wants to go have a drink. Great. But where do you draw the line, right? Where do you say he can't own a gun? He can't own a gun. Where he can't drink, he can drink. He can drive, but he can't drive, right?
Right.
Who does that?
I think one of the things I was talking to a friend about the other day is I don't know if it went through already, but 21 and over to buy a gun here in California.
That went through already, yeah.
Okay.
It got fought though, so it's in the Ninth Circuit of Appeals right now. So I expect that to go away based on a couple of recent Supreme Court rulings, Bruin specifically, and New York State Rifle Pistol Association.
Right, they fought that pretty hard. I mean, California's fighting to try to make it a law. I was explaining to a friend of mine, and I was telling him, so what is the single mother, 19, 20 years old, living, with a baby? How does she protect herself? What's her...
When 911's only minutes away.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
I mean, she has to be able to protect herself. I mean, that should be, her right. But to say 21 and over, that's when you can be able to protect yourself. So this young mother living by herself, somebody can come in and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And she's got to rely on 911. And we know that maybe if you live in a nice area, Rancho,
right,
you might get the PD that comes super quick. But if you live in certain other areas, it might take a minute.
It might, yeah.
So I think it's tough. I think. What is your take on some of the laws that they've been trying to pass in California?
I mean, where do you start? There's so many. So we'll talk about the new CCW one they're trying to pass.
Okay.
All right, let's start with that one. So they're trying to make it so even if you have a concealed carry permit, you've gone through all the tests, right? You did their shooting test, you did the interview, you passed all the backgrounds, right? California, the state has already said, you are a good guy with a gun, right?
Right.
You can own a concealed gun. That's fine, and you can bring it on you. So now they're trying to pass a law that says you can't bring your concealed carry gun into any establishment that doesn't have a sign that says concealed carry is allowed. So not signs that say no guns allowed, but signs that say yes, guns permitted, right? Otherwise, it's a de facto no. And there was you can't do it on public right-of-ways, I think, so you couldn't have it on sidewalks in public areas and all this stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, so just California being California.
Right.
And then they did this thing where it's $5,000 or a $25,000 fine, I don't remember, if they find you advertising firearms or anything firearm related to under 18-year-olds. So, the Boy Scouts, little tiny organization, they do shooting there, right? They can't advertise it. There's a young girl that lives here in Rancho, and I spaced on her name just now. I should have thought about it. She is a championship trap shooter. She shoots over-under shotguns, and she's 13, right? Her dad buys from us, cool guy. And now she's getting kicked off of all the teams, all the national teams, because they're afraid of sending her correspondence. Oh. Because they'll get sued by California. So, California is just nuts for this stuff.
There's no laws that really affect the things we need to affect, which would be crime, which would be murder. I mean, they don't create those things. I mean, a couple years ago, I remember reading they took off there used to be a law that said you would get X amount of time if you committed this crime with a gun.
Yes.
And then they removed that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that benefits who? It doesn't benefit my, grandma or my old uncle or anybody like that. That, it benefits the criminal.
Yeah. Prison system, less cost, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
they probably said it unfairly targeted a certain minority because they were constantly carrying guns or something like that. I'm not really sure what the reasoning was.
It doesn't. It's just, but it still doesn't protect.
No,
it doesn't. It doesn't affect anybody but the law-abiding citizen.
Right.
Why do you think they do that?
Ask a politician. No idea. It literally makes no sense to me.
Now, how often are you checking the law?
So I actually pay attorneys. I have attorneys on retainer, and they let me know when a law that's affecting me is coming into effect. But I'm also a member of the CRPA, and they are pretty active. I'm also a member of Cal Guns Foundation. We donate a fair amount to gun rights groups, things like that. We also donate a lot to veterans groups, and those guys tend to stay online with that stuff and let us know when things are coming down the pipe.
And then you got to make changes.
Instantly.
Yeah. They don't give you 30 days or anything like that?
It depends. Some of them are by executive order, so it's instant. A lot of them come, they get passed in January, and they activate in July. So, when... In California, you used to be able to get ammo shipped directly to your door. I'm sure you remember that.
I remember that.
Right? And then you couldn't July 1st. It was last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember.
2 years ago, yeah.
So, that law passed, and then you knew. I got 6 months to stock up before I got to start going to a gun store, which, by the way, I cannot stand that long. It's horrible because we get all this ammo shipped to us, and I got to store it somewhere until some dude decides to randomly come in and pick it up. And he's shipping in 2 little tiny boxes of ammo. And then you get the guys that are shipping in pallets of ammo.
Oh, you get pellets.
Pallets. Literal pallet drop-offs of transferred ammo.
Wow.
And we take it, right? I want the community to have what they need, so I'm fine with it. It's cool, but it's not fun when somebody comes in and they're like, oh, I had this ammo shipped here 3 weeks ago. Can I get it? And I'm like, oh, I got to go find it.
I mean, I would, going back to, why do you do it? Is it just to make it? I mean, and this goes back to what we talked about before we got on. Is it just to make money?
So one of the things that I heard when I was starting a gun business with my wife was, if you want to have $1 million in a gun business, start with 2. So not really. It's not about the money. If it was about the money, I probably just would have stopped working after the software company.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly need to work other than the fact that I love working, right? We could have worked it out. Not in Rancho. I would have had to move to Oklahoma or something like that. But it's an interesting business. I love the people for the most part. They're really cool. There's some outliers. But for the most part, all of our customers are awesome. I like the community. I like my employees. I like the employees that we get for this business. They actually care. Like, if you own a gas station or if you own a toy store or this, that, the other thing, the employees don't generally care about the product. They're just moving product. Our people, when you talk to our people behind the counter, they genuinely care. They're genuinely interested.
Right.
They're like, oh, yeah, you should get this Beretta 1301 and here's why. Or you should get this Benelli M4 and here's why. Oh, you don't have that? Okay, we'll get a Black Aces. It's almost as effective.
They've been really helpful.
They're really cool about it. And I like that. I like selling things and working with things that have interest. That's why I liked the software company for so long, right? What we did was interesting to me. It kept me busy. It kept me thinking. And the guns do too. And I got to be honest, all the gun laws that are coming down keeps me busy. I like pivoting. It's one of my favorite things.
Really?
It drives my wife insane.
Because most people don't.
No. Most people want a schedule.
And a lot of people have just bounced out of California because it's just too much.
Right.
For the regular business, average business.
Yeah, and it's hard. Don't get me wrong. But everybody tells me, oh, you should move to Texas, right? You should do a gun store in Texas. Yeah, with everybody else.
Yeah.
You can't throw a rock in Texas without hitting an FFL, right? Go on an FFL map and look at just a residential district in Texas, and there's like 30%. All the houses have FFLs.
That's crazy.
Right? You just don't. It's crazy. I don't even know how you could make any money. So at California, it's hard. It's hard to do business, but things that are hard are profitable, right? You can make money doing it if you really pay attention and try. But if you make a mistake, California will come down on you and you'll lose everything.
Do you know shops that have lost everything?
Yes, and that's all I'll say about that.
Really? Well, is it because just they weren't on top of their game, or you don't want to say?
I don't want to say. It's yep.
Could be shady stuff.
Could be. It could be.
Anything.
Could be nothing or something. One was just tiny, stupid infractions, but hadn't been audited by the government for so long that the number of tiny infractions added up to license removal. And another one was, I don't know how they had it that long.
So you being a software guy, wife being CPA, both analytical, totally.
Super analytical.
Right? So those things are like, it's not a big deal. It's kind of like a thing that you guys are get a kick out of.
A little bit. We definitely like finding the loopholes. I mean, right, Second Amendment zone, we do stuff. You know, it's all legal all the time. Everything's vetted by attorneys. We've spoken with the DOJ. They know exactly what we do. They don't love it, but it's by the letter of the law.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part. That's what I love, is like just shooting the loophole, you know?
Right.
It's very fun for me. And one day the loophole will close.
Yeah. It almost seems like the faster you shoot the loophole, the faster they close it sometimes.
Sometimes. I think the key there is to not get stuck in the loophole and it becomes a hangman's noose.
Nice. I like that. Hey, I think a lot of people think that when I first met you, I thought, it's cool, man. Personable. Store's cool. I think a lot of people think that gun guys are just these radicalized.
Some are.
Some are, I know. Radicalized, but not everybody. But I think
Right.
I think if you
think
ask
about car clubs, right? Some are like super crazy into their cars, and other guys are just like, yeah, man, cars are cool.
Right.
But that's it. We're just hanging out. This is fine.
Yeah, I just think that the majority of, I guess you're right. I mean, if you think about lowriders, let's take lowriders.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a stigma about guys that drive lowriders,
100%.
and I know a lot of guys that. My father-in-law is one of them. He's had multiple lowriders, builds them, paints them, fixes them up, sells them, but the stigma behind lowriding could probably be like, hey, these are gang members. And
Harleys, motorcycles,
same thing, right?
Japanese crotch rockets,
yeah,
right? Brodozers, the big, huge trucks with the lifted trucks,
right?
You know, everything's got a stigma on it.
And I think the majority of people think you got to, in order to be into guns, you got to be pro this, pro that. Anti this, anti that. You know, the don't tread on me flag, running in the back of your truck, and all the things that I would say maybe the media kind of throws it out there. But the common customer that you get, what is he like?
You and me and him and her and everybody. They're single moms. They're retired couples. They're guys that work 9 to 5s. They're business owners. They're, you know, girls and guys that just turned 21 and want to get their first gun now in California. I mean, we've had
both sides of the aisle.
Parties.
Both sides of the aisle too.
Easy. So if you go on Reddit, you know Reddit?
Yeah.
Right? So the Reddit has like CA guns. And then there's also a subreddit, which not a lot of people know about, but is actually pretty big, called liberal gun owners. So reddit.com/r/liberal gun owners. And it's all liberals that like owning guns and talk about that. And they get away from all the super, you know, conservative stuff, but they have their own little area, and there's a lot of them. Absolutely. Everywhere. All races, all religions, all creeds. ATF collects demographics on all background checks, right? So you can actually look. Every January they release the information. FFL Scope, I think, posts it or something like that. And you can see everything that they've collected. And like during COVID, you saw a huge spike of Asian gun ownership because they were all freaking out because everybody was crazy anti-China for a minute there.
Right.
And then lately there's been a huge spike in African-American gun ownership. I don't know why, but you can see it's a very clear spike. It just is what it is. It's everybody.
Yeah, I think I tell people that all the time. It's not your. It could be, you know, your little Hispanic dude, you know, that lives in the hood and he just wants to protect his family. It could be the guy that lives in Lato Creek and he wants to shoot, you know, in the creek there. It can be. It's just. I think people just get the stigma once again. I know I keep saying that, but of what a gun owner looks like, and I think it's always sold to us. There's no way to tell.
We're big, so we're. Again, the customer service thing is what I always push, right? And to have good customer service, you can't profile or anything like that, right? So we're big in pretty much all the communities. We have a big Pink Pistols following, which is gay gun owners, and then we've got a lot of like trans. We've got a lot of alternative lifestyle.
But that's never put out there, right?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
for us, it doesn't matter. You know, people walk in. You take their driver's license. What's on their driver's license is what they put on their paperwork. You talk to them. You treat them normal, like regular people, because that's what they are. And you just go through it. I mean, why would you discriminate based on any one thing? Isn't that the government's job?
Yeah. Yeah, seems like it is. One way or another.
Yeah.
Why is the Second Amendment so important? I mean, we hear it. We talk about it. To you, why do you think that's so important?
There's a saying that I always heard, and I don't hear it very much anymore, but I used to always hear it, and it was the second protects the first, right? Without the Second Amendment, you can't keep the First Amendment.
Can't have this podcast.
Well, let's imagine it differently. Let's go back to something that you said earlier, when you had the face masks, right? All the peaceful protests got disbanded. All the violent protests, they let them go. Why? The second protected the first. They used their First Amendment rights to riot or congregate, gather, etc., without masks. But the ones that didn't get violent, they all got sent away. The ones that did get violent apparently went to Seattle and lived there for a couple months. They let them take over. It was nuts.
Right.
So whether or not you agree with that use of it, it kind of proves the point, right? And I think that all the Bill of Rights, right, it all matters. But specifically, the second is always under attack. You know, nobody cares about illegal quarter by the military, right?
Yeah.
Or the Fifth Amendment, or, you know, the one that, you know, you can't illegal search and seizure, right? Which they do, by the way, all the freaking time. That's a whole other thing, because they said that you can't. The Fourth Amendment, I think, is search and seizure, and they said that anywhere around a border is 100-mile kind of like a gray zone where that amendment doesn't apply. And it turns out like 70% of the population is in that 100-mile stretch.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, that one's kind of gone. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think, it definitely protects the first. I think my thing has always been, and another thing, and maybe this is way out there, I think this country's never been attacked on our soil because of so many gun owners. You're not just talking about the military. You're talking about average, everyday citizens. I mean, if you just think around in your neighborhood, there could be 25, 30 gun owners just in your neighborhood.
Right. There's a thing, and I don't actually think it's true.
No.
I don't think it's true. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I don't know that goes into the mindset of it. I mean, logistically, unless you're Canada or Mexico, attacking the United States is a very difficult proposition, right? The troop movement alone would be insane.
You get a point there. They got to go through another country to get it here.
But there's always a saying that General Yamamoto, I believe it was, in Japan during World War II, said that they'd never be able to effectively invade mainland U.S. because there's a rifle behind every blade of grass, right? Everybody has guns.
Right.
I don't think he actually said that. I did a bunch of research into it. Nobody knows for sure, but I don't think he actually said it. But, you know, we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, and there was pretty much a rifle behind every blade of grass.
For sure.
And we didn't lose, but we did not win, right? Yeah. Nobody really won.
Yeah.
And whether or not you agree with or don't agree with either one of those entrances and exits is besides the point, right? I don't think that a government that thought, hey, if we have the manpower to engage the United States is going to worry necessarily about the people. Mm. And that includes our government.
Okay. Do you think that it? Why are they so after the guns then? Why do they're always trying to disarm legal gun owners?
It's a talking point. I think some really care, right? I think Newsom really cares. But I think for the rest of them, it's just the political theater of now, right? In the 80s, the Democrats didn't touch guns. They wouldn't even talk about it because it was political suicide. So they let it be, right? Instead, at that point, it was abortion, gay marriage, right? Those were the talking points.
Right.
And now those talking points up until recently were pretty much settled. So they need another talking point. They got to show that they're different somehow. So guns is it right now. And apparently it's, like I said, it's not drugs anymore. It's not abortion anymore. It's not gay marriage anymore. It's guns now. I don't know what's left. What's the big separators nowadays? More and less taxes.
Environment.
Yeah.
You know, everybody should go out and buy an electric $100,000 vehicle.
Yeah. Have you checked your electric bill lately?
Yeah.
That's pretty painful.
Yeah, it's going up, man. And the air's running right now. So, I mean,
I can tell because you haven't melted. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark when they opened up the Ark and everybody's faces melted off.
I had my eyes closed the whole time. But yeah, man, I think I think it is a talking point for a lot of people. Do you see it changing though? I mean, you mentioned all the different demographics that come through your store. Is it starting to change where the average person, and I say this because I think the average person realizes, even the average, let's say liberal or far left person realizes like it's kind of unsafe sometimes out there. I need some sort of protection. And even though they're not your average, gun guy that goes out to the desert and shoots all the time, but the changes of your average person just coming in and saying,
"Turned it off.
Hey, I need something."
I was going to look it up real quick. I don't know the numbers anymore, but during specifically COVID plus BLM, right when all the riots were happening, net new gun ownership in the United States went up double-digit percentages. I don't remember how much. I want to say it was like 30, 35%. I want to say. I'd check it, but I turn my phone off for this so it doesn't bing all the whole time. So absolutely, right? Across the aisle, everywhere, everybody for a while was buying guns. And still today, we still see a lot of first-timers coming in, a lot of people that are clearly, not super conservative coming in, buying guns, and I'm afraid for my family. I'm afraid, of the riots. I'm afraid crime's super up, which it is, right? You can see in the statistics that crime is actually up in California by far.
We can't defund the police and expect crime not to go up.
Right. I mean, I never thought I would ever see a day where an LA County sheriff was issuing CCWs. Almost a shall issue. Almost. I never thought I'd see it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so CCW, for everybody out there, is your concealed carry weapons permit where you can carry.
Yep.
You got to get it from your county, correct?
Yep.
Whatever county you live in, you got to go through a whole process. So not an easy process.
Correct.
I know that I kind of know the numbers. 11,000 they say in San Bernardino County. There's 6,000 in Riverside County, 5,000 in Orange County. LA County is known not to issue them.
Right. It was under 1,000 by far. I thought it was in the 100.
Was it under 1,000? I didn't even know
that. I thought it was like 58 or something like that 2 years ago.
That's wild.
And now I know it's way higher.
So the sheriff, Villanueva, went ahead and he put it out there. And I remember the sheriff from San Bernardino kind of mocked him a little bit, like, okay.
About time.
Yeah, because he was like saying he was going to increase it by 400%. So the sheriff in San Bernardino.
So 4 people?
Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, so 400 people are going to get it, So I remember him saying that, but I guess he was, no pun intended, he was under the gun because it was just, crime was so bad. They're defunding a lot of his departments. He had to let go, and people wanted to protect themselves.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a part of it. I've heard, just by talking to people, that there's also a political play there for him. So it's politically viable for him to start issuing these because the county board of supervisors doesn't want him doing it. And the county board of supervisors keeps trying to take away his powers. Like he publicly said he wasn't going to enforce the mask mandate.
I remember that.
And the county board of supervisors changed the law. So instead of saying that the sheriff was responsible, it was any delegated authority. Then they made themselves a delegated authority. So now he's like, okay, you want to play? Let's mess with something that's state law that you can't mess with, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to start issuing CCWs until you give me back the stuff that I want. So that's what I heard. Interestingly, that new legislation that I was telling you about that changes CCW where you could carry and stuff like that,
right,
also changes the wording and removes sheriff as the giver of the authority and makes it any delegated authority. So that's just going to be a state law change if it goes through, which would effectively strip LA County again.
Yeah, which is probably the most crime-ridden county. I mean, there's parts of San Bernardino that's pretty bad, but I mean, LA is pretty bad. I mean,
I don't know. I didn't look at the statistics.
If you there's a smash and grab. There's just a lot of stuff going on. I've saw people that I've known on the corner, of a street that Melrose, where they've always frequented and getting robbed at gunpoint, and nobody's there to save them. Nobody's there to help them. Crazy, but I don't know. Let me ask you this: CCW.
Yep.
What is your advice for CCW holders? And I say this because a lot of CCW holders have this thing where I think they get it, or no, people think that if you have a CCW, you're going to be Billy the Kid, right? And I tell people all the time, like, not necessarily. If a guy rolls up on you and you didn't see him, and you're not going to quick draw and pull it out.
Right.
I mean, what is the ideal situation in your mind for the use of your CCW?
There is no ideal situation. Ideally, you never use it. That's like an insurance policy for your car. I would love to live the rest of my life paying insurance every year and never calling the company, right? That's my favorite thing. But if you have to, then you have to. And everybody's like, oh, why didn't any CCW holders go into this school or that school? Why don't you attack? Why don't you this, that? That's not why you should have it, right? You should have it for protection of yourself and your family, and it's just to get away, right? It's just to get away. You protect yourself, you save your kids, you save your wife, you leave. Ideally, you do that just by running, right?
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. I'm not a fan of, hey, run in and save the day. That ends up in lawsuits that will ruin your life, and you might get shot by a cop because you have a gun out.
Right.
And they don't know.
So extreme Extreme. Very extreme.
Yeah.
If you can get away, get away.
If somebody's going to carjack me at gunpoint, hey, man, I got insurance. There are my keys. This is my hands. Can my kids get out of the back first? That cool?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't need it. It's just stuff. You know what I can't buy back? My life. My kids. Can't get that back. It's not worth it.
So is it worth getting the CCW?
It is, and the same reason it's worth having car insurance. You might need it.
Yeah. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Correct. And there's also the better to be judged by 6 or judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Yeah, because it entails a lot if you actually shoot somebody.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get arrested. Your gun's going to be taken away, right?
Most likely. It kind of depends, actually. You won't necessarily get arrested. Your gun will be taken away, at least for a little while.
You probably get detained, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe. There are guys that have gotten in altercations in at least San Bernardino County, and when the deputies showed up, they were like, "What happened?" And he explained it, and they pulled ring camera from the neighbor real quick, looked at it, and were like, "Yeah, we'll file a police report. Go home." Kept his gun, kept everything. No big deal.
Right.
Because it was clear as day. Right? If it's not clear as day, you might get detained for a minute.
Yeah, I think people think, if somebody's robbing my vehicle, I'm going to run out there and get
No,
it
that's
back.
crazy.
That's
Let
dumb.
them have it.
Let them have it, right?
Let them have it. That's crazy.
I think a lot of people think it's Billy the Kid, I'm going to go out there and we're going to, gunfight and it's totally different. And what makes me laugh is like people won't even fight with their hands, and now you got another guy with a gun and you're with a gun. you don't have to be close.
Right.
There's no way you weren't going to get in a fight with this guy if he didn't have a gun. What makes you think you're going to get in a fight with him? He has a gun, and you have a gun, and good luck to the best of you.
Seriously. It's like a knife fight. Everybody dies.
Yeah.
When I got my CCW the first time, I had a friend that owned rental properties, and he wanted to do it. He needed to evict people, which he's done before. No big deal. And he was like, "Oh man, the sheriff, it always takes this long. Will you go evict this person with me?" And I'm like, "Why? Like, you've never invited me to evict somebody with you before." He's like, "Well, because you have a gun." I'm like, "No, call the cops, dude. Go through eviction proceedings. What do you think I'm going to do? This is crazy."
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of good stuff. We churches have CCW holders. I think that's huge.
All the churches around here have security teams.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because there's a lot of crazy people out there. Mm-hmm. I think I tell people all the time, you're never going to stop crazy. No law, nothing is going to stop crazy. If somebody wants to
reproducing,
harm,
that's it.
They're going to harm.
Yeah,
and they're going to find a way with whether they get in their truck and ram it in somewhere or whatever.
Yep.
Build a bomb. I don't know, but they'll find a way. I mean, like you mentioned Europe earlier. I mean, the guns are pretty much gone, and then you see all these random knife attacks.
You see guys driving rental trucks through farmers markets on purpose, parades, fairs, right? That's happened a couple times. Absolutely.
It's crazy. If you could give some advice to somebody out there that wants to purchase their first gun, what gun would you tell them to buy? If you would, and what advice would you give them if they come into your store?
So first things first, before you go into a gun store in California, you need to make sure you have a valid California driver's license or California ID.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny about that? This is how nice your guys are. I was in your store one day. It was 10 days after Black Friday, so it was super busy, right?
Yep.
So I'm in line, and there's this girl, and she was, I think it was your youngest guy. I don't know. He's got to be like 5'7". I think he just got engaged when I was there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at the girl and I'm like, I don't know. I'm thinking, but he was tending to her and everything. I'm bringing this up because it's kind of funny. And we were in line for a while, and he's talking to her, showing her like 4 or 5 guns.
I know what you're talking about.
And everything. And she's, I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, and she's asking, and he's calmly, yeah, that's a very good gun. You should try it. Gets down and she goes, I'm going to buy this one. She takes out a wad of money. I mean, she had like a wad of cash. I'm like, oh, shoot, she has money. Okay. And I thought she was just window shopping. And then she took out then he goes, could I have your driver's license And she goes, yeah. She brings out the driver's license, and it's like, it's not good. It's expired. And he's like, I can't sell you this gun. And she goes, really? And
she started crying and she walked out.
Yes, right?
So it wasn't that she had an expired driver's license. She gave us a valid medical marijuana card as her proof of residence, which is an immediate disqualifier federally for firearms ownership.
It's on the
4473.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she hadn't seen the form yet. But the fact that we saw it immediately knocks her out. There's literally nothing I can do. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those, hey, if you want to come back in a couple weeks and tell me legitimately that you don't smoke marijuana anymore and you haven't since that day and you are not a user, we get another chance. But today, no chance.
I know what we're saying about the ID, but go back to the ID. I thought that was a funny story. So you need an ID.
So yeah, so you need a valid California. I can't believe you were there for that. That's so funny. We still talk about that because we were so sad because she was so into it, and I've never seen her again.
She was there for like 45 minutes. I was in line. It was a big day. I probably should have not waited till that day, but
yeah,
I should have waited a couple of days after.
I felt bad for her because it sucks, but law's law.
Yeah, she wanted that Glock,
and you can disagree or agree with the law, but in the business that I'm in, you follow it regardless.
Right.
So California ID has to be valid or a driver's license. If it's not a real ID, it could be the old one still. That's fine. If it says federal limits apply across the top, that means you don't have a real ID. Additionally, it means you won't be able to fly soon without a passport.
Right.
So you probably should go do that. It's $30 bucks
yeah.
in the DMV, and they can get it for you in a couple of weeks. It's not a big deal. But if you just can't get one for pick a reason, then I also am going to need proof of residency. So that generally is a passport or a green card with a hunting permit or a birth certificate. And that proves, hey, we're good. Once you have that, then you go take a 30-question test, which we're administrators of. We can give you the test. And it's basic stuff on firearm safety, right? Is it safe to point guns at people and pull the trigger? Is it, is the safety the only thing that you should worry about with the gun? The answer is no. Your finger shouldn't be on the trigger.
I bet people fail that test all the time.
People do fail it. But they don't fail it by much generally.
Because it's
pretty easy.
Yeah.
Most people that fail, it's an ESL problem. And they do the test in Spanish and English. But, like I said, we had that huge uptick in Asian gun ownership for a while. And we did our best. We were getting translators to come help people when we were really, really busy. Nice. Or we'd let family come in and instruct them, hey, you can read them the questions.
Yeah.
You can then read them the answers. And then you wait for them to bubble one. You cannot talk after that, right? Let them decide, that kind of thing.
Right.
So
that was cool.
Once again, we like to get all the loopholes. So I don't think it's fair for you to be denied the ability to get a firearm safety certificate, which then denies you from getting a gun, just because you can't read English, right? Yeah. You don't need to be able to read English to be able to defend yourself and understand the situation. So we do our best with that. Plus, we have employees that speak Tagalog. One guy was Mandarin. A couple guys spoke Spanish. So
nice.
We can use them to help also. So yeah, you go in, you get that card. That's $25. $20 I think goes to the state, something like that, and then $5 goes to us or something. 15, 10. And then now you got those two things, or maybe three things: driver's license / ID card, passport, birth certificate, if you needed it because it said fair limits apply, and that firearm safety card. You can buy a gun, and once you buy a gun, you then wait the 10 days minimum, maximum 30, and then you can pick it up and get some ammo and hopefully go get trained. And we have a lot of trainers that we work with. We'll give you cards, and having a gun and never training with it is like having a car and never turning it on. Doesn't make any sense.
Do people during the 10-day waiting period get denied from DOJ?
Absolutely.
They don't never tell you that though, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, they do tell you why.
We're the ones that get to call you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when we log into the DOJ system called DES, which is the dealer entry of sale, I think it is, it tells us the status of all the background checks and then whether or not it's been approved or not. So within the first 10 days, they can absolutely deny you for a variety of reasons. I got a funny story. I got a real good story. This was pre non-binary on driver's licenses, right? By a year or two. So it was still like way in limbo. And this dude who's bought a bunch of stuff from us goes to AAA to get his license renewed. And when he gets his license renewed, the lady at the counter fat fingers his gender and hits female. He gets a new driver's license, but do you inspect your driver's license when you get a new one?
No, just the picture.
You take it, you throw the old one in the trash, you grab the new one, and you throw it in there. Dude was walking around with a female driver's license for months. Didn't know it, right?
My God.
Till he went to buy a gun. Goes to buy a gun. On the form, he puts male. When I look at him, it's the guy that I sold 1 million guns to. I know that he's male, right? Yeah. So I just check. Male. Yes, fine. 3 days later, he gets denied. DMV reject. Because you don't always get it. It's not always a crime. The DMV can reject a gun sale for reasons, right? Okay. I had one guy get his gun rejected because of unpaid parking tickets. So they failed his background check.
I know somebody that got hadn't paid their child support.
Which I think is crazy. Absolutely nuts. That should not be a disqualifier. Is that guy kind of a dirtbag for not paying his child support? Maybe, probably. I'm a big fan of doing, you did the crime, now you got to do the time kind of thing.
Yeah.
But should that disqualify you from owning a firearm? Probably not. And then we've had guys that were just like, hey, I had a felony murder 20 years ago. I thought it would have fallen off by now. It didn't. Guess not. Can't have the gun. Sorry. Right? Like, you're like, are you freaking serious?
Yeah, because a lot of guys think they could, because their record got expunged, that it.
Yeah, but
it's still on there, right?
It's still there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you get a pardon, it goes away. Governor. And there's ways to have
presidential or governor.
Yeah, okay. Governor, because it's a state crime. Federal would be presidential. And then if you get your charge reduced, that would remove it. So there are guys that had a felony. Like I know a guy that built a pipe bomb as an experiment. Just this is funny, cool. It was back in the 90s, right? And he forgot about it. And he was driving it around with a trunk, like 2 years later in the trunk of his car. Man. He got pulled over. He was going fast, too fast. So they pulled him. They searched his car, found the pipe bomb from forever ago, got a felony charge.
Whoa.
Felony explosives charge. And he did a bunch of community service and got it pulled, and it all got reduced, and he can buy guns today, right? As long as you go through it and do it the right way, you can get it back. But no, we get denials. We get denials often enough that we actually became a state-certified live scan provider. Okay. So we now can do digital fingerprints at the shop. So if you got denied and you don't know why, I'll take you over to the computer and we'll do the live scan for you and send your information to the Department of Justice, and they'll mail you the reason you got denied.
Oh, nice.
But we won't ever know.
Okay. And then I had friends that have bought guns legally, and then they bought a rifle, and then the rifle's held up for like months,
up to 30 days. That's it.
No, like the DOJ won't release that gun.
Okay.
For some reason, and then it's in limbo for like literally. I had a friend at work like 5 months.
Don't go to that gun store anymore.
Was that what it was?
Yeah. So. The California Department of Justice has,
because he didn't know why, because he has a ton of guns.
It could be that your frickin' inspector at the DOJ got COVID and didn't come back to work, and your file got lost.
Oh wow,
that's happened. So yeah, there's reasons.
Okay,
it might not have anything to do with you. It might be that the shop that you bought from had a bunch of rejects, and so they're going through all their stuff with a fine-tooth comb. Right? It might be a million reasons. I mean, I literally had an inspector get COVID, and a bunch of my stuff got delayed because he was the one assigned to him.
Wow.
It took like 17, 18 days during COVID. It was taking like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 days just to get stuff approved. Normally it gets approved within 3 days. Then you have your 10-day wait anyway, so you still have to wait 10 days. But yeah, there's no reason. Now that said, I said don't go to that gun shop anymore. What I meant by that was there's something called delivery on undetermined. So basically, California has a 10-day wait. It doesn't take 10 days to do a background check. It takes like minutes, generally, to do a background check. Sure. Unless there's something they want to look at, then it can take maybe days.
Well, like the live scan. You can It gets done pretty quick.
Pretty quick. So they'll come in and they'll be like, okay, we checked this guy out, but there's something in his background that we're not totally sure of, so we're not going to answer. We're not going to say yes, we're not going to say no. We're going to leave it as what's called undetermined, right?
Right.
At 30 days, exactly 240 hours to the second from the moment the gun dealer pushed the submit button on the application, that times out. And then it's up to the gun store whether or not they want to deliver that gun. And they have 30 days to do so. So if I came in on, let's see, 30 days after September. So September 1st, right?
Yeah.
And bought a gun and I got undetermined on October 1st, that would flip to undetermined. And then the gun dealer can just push the deliver gun button, or they can tell you, I'm not comfortable doing this. So Turner's doesn't deliver on undetermined. We, by policy, do deliver on undetermined. My reasoning is, if the all-powerful, almighty California government can't positively determine that you're unable to own a firearm, who am I to say you're unable to own a firearm?
Guilty until proven.
So I say, enjoy your firearm.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good move. I mean, I wouldn't call it a loophole, but it's totally legal.
It's totally legal. And they've structured the law to give the gun dealer the option to yes or no it. And we don't yes or no, we policy yes.
Nice. Okay, so AR-15s. Huge debate on AR-15s. Do they just look scary? That's the reason why they're so, because Mini 14 is a great rifle. Probably same bullet. Probably was the AR-15 before the AR-15. I mean,
no. So interestingly, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, up until last month, used all Mini 14s. They didn't even have AR-15s. Maybe their SWAT teams do, but
I've read that some people prefer Mini 14s over the AR-15.
Right. So a Mini 14 is an M1A just stripped down. Right. It's basically an M1 Garand. It's the same operating procedure as the guns that came out of World War II, effectively. So they're just smaller versions of it. I don't know. I mean, every war movie, every Vietnam movie, everything that you've seen growing up was all M16s, and then now M4s, right? You watch Over There, or, pick one.
Yeah.
That's just AR-15, or M16, 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 M4, M4, M4. So, yeah, do people associate it with the military? Of course. It's been military service for, 70 years now? So that's probably why, I would guess.
Is there a difference between an AR that you sell and a rifle that looks like that in the military?
Yeah, ours don't do multi-burst. So when you pull the trigger for us, only one bullet comes out. And, I mean, when I was in ROTC, only one bullet came out too. You almost never used select fire, right? What are you wasting bullets for? Hit what you're shooting at and stop. That's it. But at any rate, yes, in the military, for some models, when you hold the trigger down, it fires continuously. They don't even really do that anymore. Like, unless you're doing squad weapons like an M249 or an M240, like the stuff mounted on tanks and Humvees, stuff like that. I mean, M249s are squad. You can carry them, but everything else is too big. And they're all belt-fed. Like, it's just different. So, functionally, they're effectively the same. They just fire one bullet instead of multiple.
Okay.
But the fire control units are effectively the same. The pockets are slightly different in how they're drilled. But the uppers, so AR-15s, you can effectively break them down into an upper part and a lower part. And the upper part's the barrel and the bolt. That's the part that actually is the pressure-bearing vessel, the thing that actually fires the bullet. The lower, I had a guy make one out of wood once just to see if it would work, and it did.
Wood.
Yeah, you can look up wooden AR-15 lower on Google, and it'll show it to you. It's kind of cool.
Okay, so the things that they make us do in California to the AR, you can't just go buy an AR, and it has to be the little fin on the grip.
Everybody always thinks that the government went around and said, "Hey, everybody, you got to put these fins on to make it legal," right? Okay. That's not at all what happened.
Okay,
that's not at all what happened.
What
happened was the government looked at the Mini 14, which is effectively in function, like in practical application, the same as an AR-15, right? And then looked at an AR-15 and they said, not scary to the wooden Mini 14 and scary to the black AR-15. And they said, what makes the AR-15 scary? It's that scary pistol grip. It's that scary collapsible stock. And it's that scary flash hider at the front, right?
Yes.
Which conceals your location. So they're like, we're going to ban those things. So what we're going to say is, if you have a rifle that has a detachable magazine.
The people that made those rules,
yeah, California,
they're not gun people.
You'd be really surprised.
Really?
There's some really, really smart people that really know a lot about guns that are forming these policies.
Wow. Okay.
And they're just working with the enemy.
Getting paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they go, if you have a detachable magazine, so you can push the button, the magazine comes out, and you can put another one in, right?
Yeah.
Then you can't have a flash hider, a vertical forward grip, a pistol grip, or a collapsible / folding stock, right? That's the short of it. So you can read that a couple different ways, right? Did they just ban the AR-15s? Sure, looks like it on paper. But what if you don't have a detachable magazine?
Right.
If you don't have a detachable magazine, you can have all those things, right? Because it's if you have a detachable magazine and any one of these features.
Right. Once again, the loophole.
The loophole.
Okay.
So we weren't a part of this push. We weren't at a store then. But somebody said, hey, rip the flash hider off, put a muzzle brake on it. Put a pin through the stock wherever you like it so it can't be adjusted anymore. And then let's change the pistol grip so you can't wrap your thumb around it. Because what they said was that your thumb can wrap around underneath the action. And the action on an AR-15 is way up high. So they just put a fin so your thumb physically can't move around it. And all of a sudden, you have a featureless rifle. You can run magazines that drop.
So basically, you're saying that people created loophole.
We created workarounds.
Created these things. So
yeah, they created workarounds.
Right. Okay.
And then the other option is a magazine lock. So let's say you really like that flash hider, you really like that collapsible stock because you shoot that rifle in the summer, you shoot it in the winter. You have big clothes on during the winter. You have small clothes on. You want to be able to adjust it so it works. Okay, that makes sense, right? Well, now you can't have a detachable magazine, right? So you can have a pistol grip. You can have that flash hider. You can have the collapsible stock, but you can't have a detachable magazine anymore. So what's a detachable magazine? California defined a detachable magazine as a magazine that can be removed from a firearm while it's functional together, right? So they invented this little pin that goes in the back of the gun, and you push a button, and the upper and lower separate just enough so the gun's no longer functional. Pulling the trigger won't hit the firing pin. And at that point, you can eject the magazine and then put another one in. 10 rounds only, even if you have Freedom Week mags. That's a whole other story, Freedom Week. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And then put it back together and all is good, right? So now you can do both things. So then you get guns that are weird. Like, let's forget about AR-15s for a minute. I'm going to do a little plug for myself here real quick. So let's look at like a PS90. Okay. So I don't know. You may or may not. If you played Counter-Strike, you know what a PS90 is.
I think most kids do. Don't know.
If you watched Westworld on HBO, the red guns that they shoot the hosts with, those are PS90s.
Call of Duty.
Yeah. And if you watched Stargate SG-1, I know I'm making myself a little old, but the Stargate team all used PS90s, which is why I loved them. So, in fact, my kids are named Jack and Daniel, which is after those two characters, plus the alcohol, yes. Which is another story that we'll have to do another time. Because that's a podcast on its own of how I named my kids that and got it past the wife. Because she knew what I was doing. So they put the fins in, and then you had to put this shroud on the front that would hide the flash hider to make it overall length, because you have to be at least 30 inches long. And then you could take the magazine out and all was good. But it's just hideous when you do it. So we actually invented a magazine lock. We launched it last week, 2 weeks ago, to make it so you have to take the PS90 apart, but you get to keep the flash hider, you get to keep the length, you get to keep your hands going through the holes. There's no weird kydex anywhere. It doesn't look like a big fish jumping out of the water anymore. It's super cool. And we just came out with version 2, where you don't have to fully take the gun apart. Version 1, you had to completely take everything apart. Version 2, you could just take it apart enough.
Nice.
Which is cool.
Did those things make a difference? I mean, because I've fired a gun. I mean, I got a couple of loopholes I'll talk to you about after, but I fired a friend's gun that had the fin and had all this stuff on it, and I'm just like, yeah, this seems like it's way more unsafe. You just don't have a good grip on it. You're kind of cupping it a little bit.
Well, they didn't make the laws to make the guns more safe. They were trying to get rid of them.
Yeah.
This is a way around it, right? And does it make a difference? So I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Like,
really,
I train with the gun, and as long as you train with it enough, you know how it works. My home defense rifle is finned, right? It has a fin on it because it's my favorite rifle. I want to be able to change magazines quickly, so my stock's pinned, my flash hider's gone, and I have a fin on it, and that's okay with me. I train with it enough that I can run it thumbs forward, and it doesn't even bother me. If you ever go to a precision rifle class, like a real precision rifle class, like shooting over 1,000 yards,
right?
They'll actually teach you to not wrap your thumb around it. They'll want you, even if you have a pistol grip, they'll teach you to run thumbs forward. The reason is when you grip, you twist. And as you grip harder, you twist harder. And the more you grip, the more off your shot will be. So it's actually better for accuracy to run thumbs forward because you're not creating that torque on the firearm.
Okay.
But it's just weird to get used to because it's not what you ever practiced with.
Right. And that's most people's problem, right? When they buy a gun, they never practice with it.
Right. That is a huge problem. And we advise every new buyer of firearms to go to training. We have discount codes for local trainers. Rancho Magnum Range does trainings every week down here in Rancho Cucamonga. We partner with them. There's a guy named Dave Mitchell. He's ex-military. He does trainings on his own. He does a great job. There's a bunch of guys that we work with that do really great training.
Nice. Now, there's a lot more to you than what I pictured. Software guy. I knew you're a dad, knew you were married, but you're a car guy.
Yeah.
Favorite car you have right now?
What's the use case?
Let's say cruising down Foothill.
Cruising down Foothill, probably my 88 Porsche Carrera.
Nice.
But if it was literally everyday driving, I'd say it's my wife's Toyota Sienna because it's just great. Like the air conditioner works. The kids can be separated so they can't whack each other.
Okay, I would never guess you would have said the Sienna every day. You pulled up in the Hummer. You pulled up in the Hummer, though.
I pulled up in the Hummer. So right now we're a little car heavy. During COVID, I got a little bored, and me being bored is never a good thing. So I picked up a bunch of cars for really cheap. So I currently have a 1968 Ford Mustang that I rebuilt with my dad. I bought it when I was 14. It's my first car.
So cool.
We built it 3 times. And now it currently exists as a 5-speed T5Z with a 9-inch Ford rear end. I've got a 408 stroker in it. It's got full Meyer racing suspension, coilovers. It's got X braces on the bottom. It's super solid.
How often do you drive it?
Once a month.
Yeah.
It's just too fast. Like it's fun, but my kids. Yeah, I wish I could do this on YouTube and I'd show you. There's a video of my kid and we're getting on the freeway. My wife's driving, and she's in third on the on-ramp, and she floors it, and you just hear the whoa as the wheels break. And I've got the video on my kid in the back, and he's just screaming. He's so happy. So that car's, it's fun, but it's fast.
It's a little dangerous.
And so you gotta be careful with it. The Porsche is fun because you can do whatever you want. And it's not that fast, really, but corners are amazing, super fun. And then
the Euro cars are known for handling.
Yeah,
right?
they handle great.
Yeah.
And then the Humvee's fun, but the Humvee's 55 miles an hour max, and it takes me 10 minutes to get there. Like, that thing is not fast.
10 minutes, 10 gallons.
Yeah, it eats diesel like crazy. It's loud. We actually have earphones like this and a communication system in the Humvee. So when we're driving, we all throw headphones on with mics so we can talk because it's just so loud.
It's that loud?
It's that loud. You literally cannot talk unless you're screaming. It's loud. I mean, it's got 38-inch tires or something stupid on it, or 42-inch tires, and there's no insulation. And the drivetrain, have you ever been in a Humvee?
No.
So, like when you sit in your car, you can take your hand and you can put it on the person next to you. In the Humvee, you can't. The drivetrain, it's like this. It's like this high, and it's running between you all. So it's 1 person, 2 persons, 3 persons, and then 4 persons. And the drive shaft is at your hips.
Right where the center console
Yeah, it's at your hips because it's low center of gravity. So you get like 20-something inches of clearance at the bottom, and you won't really roll over until you go past 40 degrees because everything's set up that way. It's all real low. But there's no insulation, so that drive tunnel is hot, and it's loud, and the tires are loud, and the windows are bulletproof, and the doors are bulletproof, and they're that thick, but you're just touching bulletproof. It's all Kevlar. So there's no soundproofing. It's a cloth top. So it's just loud, and it's obnoxious, and it's fun. And we put an air horn on it.
But it looks good in front of the shop.
It looks good in front of the shop. And my wife's got a 90 and an 86 Supra. So she drives those and likes them a lot. And it's fun.
Great, man. I mean, you're a really cool dude, man. It's software,
thank you.
Cars.
My wife always called
guns.
me weird. She was like, how are you a software guy that actually likes talking to people? Computer guys aren't supposed to talk to people.
I was very surprised when you told me that today about you being a software guy. I was like, I didn't. Yeah, it didn't make sense. I see you as a people person because I've been in your shop multiple times. But yeah, software guy. Once again, the stigma.
Yeah,
right?
the stigma.
It's just like to himself in the room on the computer.
Yeah,
leave me alone.
And I can be that way, but generally I'm very extroverted. But yeah, if you were to YouTube my name plus Liferay, Liferay,
okay,
you'll be able to see me in Germany and a bunch of other places doing talks on the software that we sell and worked on.
And you're still fairly young, man.
I turned 40 in March.
So you live the software life, the gun life, the car life. I mean, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, like I said, I just don't do bored. I have a lot of energy. It's probably severe ADD that I just channel well.
Most people don't, so that's good. You could take what people could consider negative and turn it into a positive and be like, yeah, I'm driven. I guess that's what it was called at one time. It was driven. Now they call it ADHD. You steer it the wrong way.
Right.
Whatever.
Like the whole time we're doing it, my toes are bounce under the chair. I just cannot sit still.
Got to get going. So, all right, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, anytime.
I mean, learn a lot of cool stuff. We do one more thing here.
What's that?
It's the Furious 5, man. What we do is we ask you 5 furious questions, and you answer it.
I probably should have watched the podcast before I did this.
Yeah, it's cake, man. It's cake. So we put on a little music. I wrote down a couple of little questions I had for you. Question number 1 for Brett on the Street Gospel Furious 5. What was your first gun?
My first gun was a SIG P220 that I bought on Gunbroker from a cop in Texas.
How old were you?
20. Oh, no, that was the first handgun. First gun was a Mini 14 that I bought in Covina.
I love Mini 14s.
Yeah. So I bought a Mini 14 on my 18th birthday. I bought a SIG P220 on my 21st birthday.
Are you a big SIG guy?
I was. I'm less of a SIG guy now because I don't love double action, single action triggers. That said, the P320 and 365 line, which you can get in California, it just takes effort, are amazing. I like them a lot. My daily carry is a 365 XL.
I shot both my friends SIG maybe like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
I've never shot a SIG, but I was in love.
Yeah, they're nice. Good quality, good support. Owning a gun store, you see a lot of stuff come in that's like somebody broke it, they lost the springs, whatever. SIG's real good about it. I just shipped them a bag full of parts, and I go, can you guys just... And they're like, yeah, $30 plus shipping. We're good. Whatever the parts are.
Great service. I like my CZ. And my SIG guy
CZs are great.
loved my CZ.
CZs are great.
So, we were shooting each other's guns, and I'm like...
You have a SP01?
P01 and the Rammy. They don't make the Rammy.
They don't make the Rammy anymore. But the P01, if you ever decide you want to up that, send it to Cajun Gunworks.
I've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very nice.
I'm saving for that. I got a little.
Get an SP01, the full size.
Yeah,
and send that to Cajun.
That'd be so.
That's
sick.
The way to do it.
Yeah, they're really good outfit. Question number 2 on the Street Gospel Furious 5 for Brett. What's the best advice somebody has ever given you?
Be yourself. Don't change for anybody.
I love that. I think that's super important.
Took me 2 wives to figure that out.
You know what? My friend Albert Sanchez passed away. I spoke at his funeral. This was Saturday, and that's one of the things I said. I said I thought I had a fit in a certain, cookie cutter way of things, and he always taught me and told me, "Hey, Dave, just be yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. Just be who you are. That's it." And that was one of the things I shared about that. It's so important, especially nowadays.
Second thing, yes, dear.
Yeah. With a very nice tone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You can say yes, dear, but you got to do it in a good tone.
As long as she thinks you mean it, you're counting.
I had to change my tone. I would say nice things, but my tone would totally give it away. Yep. So if you change the tone and say nice things, then you're in there.
Yep.
Question number 3. What is the greatest rifle ever made, in your opinion?
Oh, man. I guess maybe an AK-47.
Really?
And the only reason that I would say that is because the worldwide adoption and the ability for it to just run. And every third world country ever has run it. And it's just ubiquitous. And you can make it with a shovel in a cave. and that's all there is to it. I mean, there's so many different options that you could pick from. But as far as a generalized statement, probably that. But like bolt action rifles are more used for hunting, right? And then, I mean, you've got like a surgeon scalpel for like 1,000+ yard shots. There's so many options. But if I had to just any AK-47, any variant,
they have. I think somebody told me once. I go, are they accurate? No, they don't need to be.
They don't need to be. They can be. The Dragunovs are a variant of an AK-47. They're fairly accurate, but nothing as accurate as Western firearms.
Yeah, but as far as, I guess, reliability, durability,
Western firearms are there now. But when the AK-47 first came out and the M16 first came out, the AK-47 stomped it.
Right.
Just with reliability. Accuracy, the M16's always won.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the Vietnam guys complained about the M16 early on.
At first, yeah, because they weren't properly cleaning them, but they didn't have the tools to do so in mud and mush and mark and horribleness that they were in.
Unlike the AK, where
it was designed for that. Worked great.
Question number 4. If you could change one law in California when it comes to guns, what would it be?
Handgun roster. I'd get rid of it.
Okay, explain the roster real quick.
That's a whole other podcast. But in very, very short terms, any gun that is not already approved for sale in California that was manufactured after 2012 isn't available in California.
I hate that.
Is really the shortness of it. So we can have old guns. Here's the funny thing about the handgun roster. This is just an aside.
Yeah.
So HK-USP, right? Popular gun.
Right.
Used by police forces everywhere. Militaries everywhere. On the roster in California. Completely legal to buy. And then they realized there was a problem. HK figured out that the firing pins were breaking, is my understanding. And so they just fixed it. Right? They fixed the firing pin. And it's been selling for, I guess, years. And a couple months ago, California Department of Justice figured out that they changed a critical component in the fire control group and pulled them off the roster. So what was okay to buy 3 months ago is no longer okay to buy because they made it safer. I hate the roster.
Yeah, I hate it too. I mean, I fired my cop friends Glock 43.
Oh, it's great.
I loved it.
Yep.
I was like, this is great, and not on the roster, of course. And there's a lot of guns. I tell everybody, that's the first thing I tell everybody is they'll go through online or buy a magazine and be, I want this gun. Check if it's on the roster. If it's cool, it's probably not.
It's probably not.
Sucks, man. Last question on the Furious 5. If you could be one of these guys, who would it be? Billy the Kid or Doc Holliday?
Doc Holliday. But can I not die of syphilis or whatever that was?
Yeah. He lived a pretty good life. I mean, he still shot good.
He did shoot good.
Even sick, right?
Yep.
But and Billy the Kid died pretty young. So I guess I'd take Doc with the sickness. I don't know. Maybe not. It was, some sexually transmitted disease there.
Yeah, definitely the Doc. I mean, the Doc was an actual Doc. Billy the Kid was insane.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
And he was insane young, too.
He was super insane.
I'm like, you look up the age and you're like, yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Anything you want to shout out?
Nah. Nothing.
The store?
The store, Second Amendment Zone, Upland, maybe other places soon.
Oh.
Maybe.
I hope so.
Bigger. Yeah. I mean, you've been where we are. It gets pretty cramped sometimes.
You have a ton of rifles on that wall, dude. Every time you post pictures of it, I'm like, how does he get that many up there?
By cramming them together and making it so they don't look nice. Everybody with OCD always yells at me. They're like, can I come fix your wall? And I'm like, the only way you're going to fix it is by taking stuff off the wall, and stuff in my vault doesn't sell.
I think it's cool. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason behind it. So you're up there and you literally have to look at the whole wall, right, to find what you want.
That's correct. And we don't put anything where it's supposed to be.
And I think that's a good selling thing because you're looking, and then all of a sudden, that's kind of how I bought my rifle.
A little gem off in the corner that you didn't think would even be there.
What is that?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, come to the store. We'll help you out. I mean, ammo, accessories, firearms, life advice, marriage advice. We got you. No problem.
Everything.
Yeah, it's cool. And we do a lot of fun things.
Yeah, it's definitely dope. Check them out. They're online. Second Amendment Zone on Facebook. They got their Instagram. You can find all the pictures of everything out there. But really cool store. I'll vouch for them every time.
Instagram's at the number 2, the letter A, Z-O-N-E.
Got it.
And it's 2azone.com. Number 2, letter A, Z-O-N-E.com.
Right on, man.
I manage the entire website, so it looks like our wall jumbled.
Yeah, of course you do. Of course the software guy does.
Right.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely.